was raining the day I found the house. Not a heavy rain, just a steady, cold drizzle that blurred the edges of the world and made everything smell like wet earth. I was driving aimlessly, trying to get away from the city, from the noise, from everything. That's when I saw it, a narrow dirt road I had never noticed before, cutting away from the main highway and disappearing into a tunnel of trees. I don't know why I turned. I shouldn't have. But something about the way the trees leaned over that road, like they were whispering to each other, felt inviting, or maybe warning me. I didn't care. The road was long, uneven, and seemed to stretch forever. I kept expecting to see another car, another person, but there was nothing. Only the sound of my tires crunching wet gravel, the hiss of rain on my windshield, and the faint thrum of my own heartbeat. Finally, I reached the end, and there it was. A house, a cottage, really sitting alone in a clearing, the trees bending away from it like they didn't want to touch it. Its windows were dark, its roof sagged slightly, and the front porch looked like it might collapse if I breathed too hard. But there was something about it, something that made me stop the car, step out and walk up to the porch. The door was unlocked. Of course it was. I stepped inside. The smell hit me first, damp, old, a long time and had just been dug up. The floor creaked under my weight, dust stirred in the air, and somewhere deep inside the house, I thought I heard a door close. I should have turned around. I should have left right then, but instead, I called out, "Hello?" My voice echoed back at me, too loud in the empty space. No answer. I walked through. The first room, a small sitting room with a fireplace full of cold ash and a single wooden chair, knocked slightly off center. There was a rug in the middle of the floor, moth-eaten and frayed at the edges, and under the rug a trapdoor. I stared at it for a long time, my heart hammering in my chest. Who leaves a trapdoor right in the middle of their living room? I knelt down, brushed away the dust, and tried the handle. It was cold. So cold it almost burned my hand, like something that had been buried for. The door creaked open. A smell rose up from the darkness below, worse than before. Rot, metal, something wet and sour. There were steps leading down. I hesitated, then took the first step. The stairs were narrow, steep, and slick with moisture. The air grew colder with every step. When I reached the bottom, I found myself in a narrow hallway. The walls were stone, damp with condensation, and the ceiling was so low I had to duck. There were 3 doors, all closed. I stood there, the silence pressing in on me, my breath fogging the air. Then from behind the first door, knocking. 3 soft, deliberate knocks. I froze. It wasn't random. It wasn't the house settling. It was too perfect, too human. I reached for the doorknob with a shaking hand. The metal was freezing. I turned it, and the door swung inward. The room was empty. Just 4 walls, a dirt floor, and something scratched into the far wall, deep, desperate claw marks, like someone had tried to dig their way out. Stumbled back, my breath coming fast. Then the second door knocked. 3 knocks. Slow, patient. I wanted to run. I wanted to get out of that hallway, out of that house, out of that forest. But my feet wouldn't move. I reached for the second door, turned the handle. It didn't open, but something knocked again, this time from directly behind me. I spun around. The first door, the one I had just opened, was closed again. And on the inside of the door, something had been written in fresh, wet black letters. "You shouldn't be here." I backed away, heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. The third door knocked, louder this time. I couldn't help myself. I opened it. What I saw shouldn't have been there. It was a room, but it didn't fit. It was too big, far too big to fit under a cottage this small. The ceiling stretched impossibly high, disappearing into darkness, and in the center of the room was a single wooden chair. And on the chair, someone was sitting, not moving, not breathing. I stepped closer, my legs trembling. It wasn't a person. It was a mannequin, old, cracked, with glassy staring eyes and a wide painted smile. As I stared, its head turned, slowly, and from somewhere in the darkness above a voice whispered, "You found it!" The door slammed shut behind me. I didn't move for a long time. I couldn't. The air in the massive room felt thick, almost alive, pressing down on my chest. The mannequin's head stayed turned toward me, its painted grin fixed and wrong. I stepped back, my boots crunching on the damp floor. Somewhere far above, I heard something shift, a dragging sound. like something heavy being pulled across the ceiling. Then a faint hum began. At first I thought it was in my head, but it grew louder, vibrating through the floor, a low, bone-deep sound that made my teeth ache. The mannequin's head twitched. Once, then again, and then it stood. The sound of its wooden joints creaking echoed in the cavernous room. Its painted grin never changed. It just stood there, tilting its head from side to side as though studying me. I stumbled back toward the door, but it wouldn't open. I pulled, I yanked, I slammed my shoulder against it. Nothing. The hum grew louder. The air felt heavier, and in the far corners of the room, shapes began to appear. At first they were just shadows. Then they began to move. Dozens of figures crawling from the darkness, pale and thin, their limbs too long, their movements jerky and unnatural. Their faces, I will never forget their faces, smooth, featureless except for wide, toothless grins. They gathered around the chair, circling it, their heads all turning toward me at once. I backed into the center of the room, nowhere to run. Then the mannequin raised one arm. Slowly, every figure copied the movement in perfect unison. Dozens of arms pointing at me. The humming stopped, and in the silence I heard it. The sound of something breathing just behind me. I spun around. There was another door. It hadn't been there before. It was tall, too tall, stretching almost up to the invisible ceiling, made of dark, rotten wood. I didn't think. I just grabbed the handle and yanked it open. Cold air blasted my face. The world beyond was not a hallway, not part of the house at all. It was outside, a vast empty field stretched out in all directions, covered in mist. A single lamppost stood far away, its light flickering. I stepped through, and the door slammed behind me. The field was silent except for the sound of my breathing. No crickets, no wind. I began walking toward the lamppost, the wet grass soaking through my boots. The mist swirled around my legs, curling like fingers. Halfway there, I heard footsteps. Not mine. I turned. Someone was standing where I had just been, far away, barely visible through the fog. But I could see them, tall, thin, head cocked unnaturally to one side. Watching, I began running. The lamppost seemed to get farther away the faster I ran. The footsteps followed. When I finally reached the lamppost, I stopped, gasping for breath. The figure was closer now, too close, and then the light above me flickered out. Darkness swallowed me whole. I couldn't see. I couldn't breathe. And then I felt a hand, ice cold, close around my shoulder. I screamed and spun around. I was back in the hallway. The trapdoor was gone. The rug was back in place. The house was silent, still, like nothing had happened. But my boots were still wet, and in the middle of the floor, written in the dust in jagged letters, were 3 words. Find the room. I didn't want to. I didn't want any of this. But something inside me, something I can't explain, made me pick up the rug again, slam my hands against the floor, desperate to find the trapdoor. It wasn't there. No door, no stairs, no hallway, just solid wood. Then the knocking started. Not from below this time, from inside the walls. 3 knocks, then 3 more, all around me from every direction at once. The lights in the cottage began to flicker. The air grew colder, and in the reflection of the dusty window, I saw it. The mannequin, standing just behind me. I couldn't breathe. I spun around, but there was nothing behind me, only empty space. But the reflection, it stayed. The mannequin in the window didn't move, didn't blink, didn't vanish. It just stood there, head tilted, smile fixed. Then slowly its hand rose and pointed to the hallway. I didn't want to go, but my legs moved anyway. The hallway seemed longer now, stretched. Every step echoed, like I was walking inside a tunnel. The knocking followed me, always 3, always right behind me. I reached the end of the hallway, and there it was, the trapdoor, back where it had been before, as if it had never been gone. I dropped to my knees and yanked it open. The cold air hit me like a wave. This time the steps below were lit by a faint, pulsing glow, like a heartbeat. I went down. The hallway was the same. 3 doors, but now they were open. All of them. Inside the first room, I saw something moving, a shadow pacing back and forth. Its shape human but wrong, too thin, too tall. The second room was full of chairs. Dozens of them, all facing the door, as though waiting for an audience. On each chair sat a mannequin, all of them with cracked smiles, all of them staring at me. And the third room, the impossible room, it wasn't empty this time. The faceless figures were there, all standing in a perfect circle, surrounding the wooden chair. And sitting on the chair, me, my own face, my own body, staring back at me with dead, lifeless eyes. The other me stood slowly. "You found it," he said in my own voice. The circle of figures began to close in, their heads turning in unison. The hum started again, louder than ever, shaking the walls. I tried to run, but the door was gone. There were no walls anymore, only darkness. The figures moved closer, closer, until they were just inches away, their smooth faces almost touching mine, and then everything went silent. The other me leaned forward and whispered, "Now you stay, we leave." And then he smiled, too wide. Everything went black. When I woke up, I was sitting in the wooden chair, alone. The room was empty. The figures, the other me, gone. But when I stood, I realized something was wrong. My reflection, in the far wall, in the shiny, wet stone, it stayed sitting, smiling. And then I heard footsteps upstairs. Slow, steady, moving across the cottage floor. Someone else was here. I ran to the stairs, slammed the trapdoor open, and froze. There was a man standing in the living room, holding a suitcase, looking around nervously, just like I had when I first arrived. He didn't see me. He couldn't. I tried to shout, but no sound came. And then I understood. I wasn't leaving this place. I had become part of it. I watched as the man stepped inside, brushing past me, heading toward the rug. And as he pulled it back to reveal the trapdoor, I felt my lips curl into a smile. A wide, wrong smile I couldn't control. And from somewhere deep below, the knocking began again. 3 slow, perfect knocks.